Hey YouTube, hope you're all doing well. Today we will continue our draft guides on how I'm seeing like some certain color pairs being played, and on the today's menu we will be looking at the Prismari. I will be talking on like how I'm gonna approach when it comes to deck building drafting on the day of the release. Since I haven't had the chance of playing the format, this is just me like speculating on cards and speculating on the archetypes, how I see them being played. Like I said in the first video, we will try to cover all 5 schools, but the idea is to try to release this all videos before the set is released. That way I will have a video where I can check later on like how right or wrong I was on the certain cards, archetypes, and I guess that will be a fun thing for myself to see like how many of them we did nail and how many of them like I was wrong with. So without further ado, let's dive into this today's video, and we are gonna be talking about Prismari, or am I more used to as it calling it, is it? So the main way I see Prismari when it comes to deck building is that it does give a vibe of spell matters. What I mean when I say spells, I mean instant and sorceries. We have cards to trigger our opus. Same as Lorkhord, I would say that there are 2 different ideas with this color pair. One of them would be more interested on curving out and casting efficiencies at the sorceries, like maybe 1 mana, 2 mana, keep on like passing through with your creatures that are triggering opus and are really good on attacking. And the second one would maybe be more interested on triggering the opus, but for the 5 mana more worth of spells. We will also check some rares that I guess are pretty good for the build, comparing to Lorkhord, where I guess like all rares you could like figure out where they gonna be good. I think like one of the rares at least is good for a certain view of this archetype. So let's start with the easier one, which will be, let's say, more tempo orientated. I would not use the word aggressive as the Lorkhord one is, since like we are gonna play a bit more expensive spells or creatures in this deck. Let's start with creatures, the creatures that I think are gonna be good for this idea. Luge Virtuoso, it's for 3 mana, 2/2. When it does enter, it does stun a creature from opponent. That means that it taps it and it doesn't untap for the next untap step. And then whenever we cast an instant or sorcery, this one will grow a bit. Why do I like this one is because I feel like it's pretty good way of making sure our creatures will attack, while at the same time our idea is on trying to cast some instant sorceries, or many of them as well, so that this one can keep on growing. It does feel like an efficient creature for the mana we pay. Next one I really like for this shell would be Encouraging Aviator. It's a 3 mana 2/3 flyer. Whenever it attacks, it prepares, and when it does prepare, you can pay 1 blue to give a creature a flying. Why I really like this one, or why I think this one will be really good for the deck, is because it does give you an option of always having an instant sorcery, right? For this one, for us getting a chance on casting instant, it just needs to attack. So if we can keep on attacking with this one will make sure other creatures will grow, and on the same time triggering other opus effects. Hydro Channeler for 2 mana, 1/3. On tap, it does give us the mana for instant sorcery, and you can tap it for 1 color less to produce any mana of our choice. I think this one is good because like we are interested in playing as many spells as we can. Would say that this one would generally go for both versions of the Prismari, for the one that is interested on casting the expensive ones and the cheap spells. But the reasoning we like it is that it will help us on casting as many spells as we can on the turns where it will be crucial. Matter Bending Mage, 3 mana 2/2. When this one enters, it does return a creature from creature to its owner's hand. You can even choose to return yours, but I think our idea will be to return opponents and be tempo orientated. And there are gonna be some X spells that we might play in this shell, so it will be good on having a possible unblockable creature if you choose to play the Ancestors' Anger on this card. For 4 mana, Tackle Artist, it's a 4/3, and whenever we cast an instant sorcery, you put a counter on this one. If a spell that we cast is more than 5, then this one gets 2 counters. Why I feel like this one will be good? It feels like a good top end card to have, so it might just like outgrow their board, and it does have that natural trample on itself, so it might just be good enough for the for the shell. And I think the best card we can possibly get as a 2-drop is the Thunder Drum Soloist here. It will have that really good reach for dealing 1 damage, and I think we are gonna be more likely on having that option of casting a 5 mana spell comparing to Lorehold. So even if we are gonna play this color combination as tempo oriented, here I feel like it might happen more often, that we might get that 3 damage happening as well. Blazing Firesinger, it is an interesting creature. It does give us an option of possibly generating more mana or generating to cast more instant and sorceries in a 1 turn. So I think I would not close my eyes on like trying this one out. So currently I'm not sure if this one will go more towards the, let's say, one interested on casting heavier spells, but I think it can work in on aggressive decks because like it generates a momentum that if you can use it, it might just be like super good for the deck. Expressive Fire Dancer, as you maybe can guess it, like it does give that like vibe of Festival Crasher, even though it doesn't grow only on power, so it grows on power and toughness. I think like it is pretty solid creature for us to pick it highly for making it as efficient as we can. And I think generally speaking, the idea of this shell is that you want to be trying to play creatures as well that have the prepare on themselves. That means you get a creature that can get an instant and sorcery, and the ones that are 1 mana are generally going to be interested for this. So I would not like close my eyes when it comes to like Goblin Glasswright. Maybe if we can like help it, maybe try the Pigment Wrangler as well. It does give that option, like I said, a creature and gives an instant sorcery for 1. Landscape Painter, yet again another creature. This one is a bit more interesting because like usually when you have a creature attached with a draw 2, you don't want to be interested on giving it away, but this is a 2-drop and we want to be attacking, we don't want to be protecting our creatures. But if we are liking 2-drops and we can support it, I would give this one a go as a way of possibly refilling and giving an opus. Spellbook Seeker, yet again another card that does have that option of let's keep on casting instant sorceries for 1 mana. It is a flyer, and draw 2, discard 2 just means that you will just pick between cards, most likely discard 2 lands and keep up the spells. That does it for when it comes to like creatures I like in blue and red. Let's go to Signpost cards, like the golden cards in Prismari, is it? And let's talk about the ones that we will be interested on trying it out when it comes to more tempo oriented deck. I think the Elemental Mascot is a pretty good creature to have in mind. It's a 3 mana 1/4 flyer. It keeps on growing, or it gets that power when we cast an instant and a sorcery. And I think in this version we will most likely not try to get the 5 mana one, but it's still pretty good card because it's a flying vigilance, and I would assume it will be harder on blocking it, especially if you can like make sure you cast 1 or 2 spells. But even if you're not casting many spells, it always will feel like it can keep on attacking. So I would give this one a go. This one is super interesting, the Spectacular Sky Whale. It's a 4 mana 1/4, but anytime we will cast an instant sorcery, this is the biggest we can get, +3/+0. And if by any means we can get to cast the 5 mana spells, this one will get a counter. So I would say that this is, comparing to other 4-drops, maybe the best we can get, but it just feels amazing for the Prismari. And I think if you ever get 1 times the 5 mana spells, this one is just gonna keep on passing and it's close to unblockable. Stadium Tidal Mage, pretty good way of making sure that we can get the spells we're interested in. Every time it does enter, it will give that the draw and discard, so it's a pretty good looting effect. It's not damage, which is better. And then anytime it does attack, it will do the same. So this one kinda seems good for the deck. Now we will like check some instant and sorceries that I think can be pretty good for the deck. I would say the Chase Inspiration is pretty good to have because it's a 1 mana, having a way of protecting your turn, while at the same time having that option of triggering the opus. So I think this one we would definitely want to have some of, maybe 1, maybe 2. It is a good way of protecting our key 4-drops. So I would not even hate a play pattern of like our 4-drop being cast in 5, just to make sure that we have Chase Inspiration up at that moment to protect it. Ancestral Anger, as you can guess it, like this is another version of the trying to use this card. We have a lot of opus triggers, or a lot of creatures that we are interested on triggering. This one is pretty good on giving them trample and redrawing a card, so I think we would be interested on maybe getting as many as we can of this. And same as in Lore Horde, having a 1 mana and plus a flashback card that can take a blocker away from them, I think we would wanna try to get as many of the dual tactics as well. Flow State does not feel like a bad card draw for us. It does have an option of picking a card from the tree, and it does feel like we will have an option of getting instant and sorcery both in the graveyard, so we can actually choose to 2 cards to get. It's a pretty good way of making sure that you can keep on casting spells, so I think this would be a card advantage card that we would want to get as many as possible as we can. Fractional Anomaly is an interesting card because like it does provide a creature while triggering an instant and sorcery. I would be careful when it comes to this one because like on the first glance, yes, it is 1 mana 1/1, but we want to try to make this a bit better, I would say. I don't think we are interested on just playing it as a 1/1. If we have other passive ways of drawing cards, maybe we can give it a way of playing it in aggressive decks. Or not aggressive decks, the tempo-oriented one that we're talking about, but if not, I would maybe keep this one for the other version. Fractalize is an interesting card. I would not hate on trying this one out. It does give that option of possibly ending the game if the opponent is tap out and we have a lot of access to our mana. Plus it can trigger the Opus for 5, X equals 4, and then we cast it for 5. So this one is interesting because you can actually target opponent's creature as well, so you can shrink it, which can be pretty good. For us to shrink an opponent creature, we can play just 1 blue, right? Since you cast it for X equals 0, it's 1 blue, you make their creature a 1/1. So it's a pretty good way of shrinking opponent's creature while casting instant and sorceries, and at the same time it does feel like it's a good way of like ending the game. So I would be interested on trying this one in this version. Procrastinate. This one is interesting in a way that it does give a vibe as a removal, since you can pay like 2 or 3, and I feel like if you stun a creature for 6 counters, that creature you could count as dead. Of course, like it's an issue if you do this on the problematic stuff that does have like prepared, since like you didn't take the prepare part. But since we are interested in being efficient and trying to end the game as fast as possible, I would assume that this one could be interested on trying it out. Plus, yet again, it does have X into it, so our 3-drop could get unblockable with this. Triggering the Opus early on, making sure we can attack, and if we can afford it, we can always choose the X equals 4, so that we get the 5 mana Opus triggers on this one. Banishing Betrayal for 2 mana, we can return a non-land permanent to its owner's hand and we get a Surveil. This one feels like an efficient way of making sure our creatures will attack while manipulating our top, and then like making sure that we can keep on casting our Ancestor's Anger, maybe even getting some flashback cards. So I would give this one a try as well. One thing that I did realize is that the Hittite argument does feel like a pretty good removal to have in this Opus decks, because like it is a 5 mana, so it will trigger Opus for the more expensive stuff, and then yet again it is a removal that feels like it will kill anything in the set. 2 damage might matter a lot that we can deal to the face, and if you think about it, this card with the 2-drop the drummer that we have seen actually gives a vibe that we get a Lava Axe, right? You deal 2 plus 3, that's 5. So for 5 mana you kill a creature and can actually get a Lava Axe to an opponent. So I would actually try to use those cards together as much as I can if we can. So now I guess I will talk a bit about the removal and which ones I would be interested in playing in this. In Practical Joke, I don't think I need to explain you why this is gonna be good. It is 1 mana way of dealing with a creature, and it is super efficient while triggering our Opus. Try to get this as many as you can. So we would want to be playing the Tome Blast as well here. We would like to play the Unsuitable Mockery, and we would just want to have efficient removal. Prismari Charm is an interesting card that we can as well choose to play. It does give us 3 mods: Surveil 2, draw a card, deal 1 damage to each of 1 or 2 targets, and then return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. With this version of the deck, I think we are gonna... Depends on like what creatures opponent does have. We could choose the 1 damage as a way of like passing and killing small blockers, having a way of refilling, or just triggering Opus. First one seems nice. Or if we care on just like trying to end the game and like taking that 1 big blocker away, we can just go for a bounce. So the charm does feel good for the Prismari tempo oriented deck. Stress Dream, pretty good removal we can get, 5 damage to one creature, and then choosing one of the cards to put it into a hand does feel like a pretty good deal in my opinion. So I would be interested on getting this one as well in this version of the deck. And the Vibrant Outburst, 2 mana, deals 3 damage and taps up to 1 target creature. I think this is the first time we see this effect where it's like super efficient removal and it can go phase and it taps a creature. So it's really powerful spell. You cannot go wrong when you are trying to make a Prismari deck on picking this one. It's good on the offense, and it is pretty good on the defense as well, because like you can kill an attacker and tap the attacker, or if you're offensive you can kill a blocker and tap an additional blocker. It's a really strong card. So generally the idea of this deck will be to play our early threats, the 2 mana and the 3 mana ones, try to cast as many efficient removals or ways of going through our deck and triggering the opus, and if we can, make sure that we can cast the more expensive spells and try to end the game with them. Like I gave an example of the heated argument, where it can give a option of being a lava X as well if you combine the cards well together. Now we will try to cover the other version of this deck. This one will be more interested on casting those expensive instant and sorceries, and we would maybe be interested in playing as many cards as we can to actually help us in that plan. And with that said, I think the best way we can start is with the Abstract Paint Mage. It's a 3 mana. On your first main phase of a turn, it does give you 2 mana. This is a creature that does have a bullseye target on it, because like at the moment you play this, opponent cannot choose to not appreciate this one. It ramps you for 2 and it will keep on ramping you for 2. It is a creature that just represents a threat, and if it does survive for us, we will try to use this one as much as we can on casting our instant and sorceries. So this one kind of helps out a lot with the plan. Comparing to the other version of the deck, I think in this version I would be super excited on trying the Sanar. Anytime we cast an instant or sorcery, it can make a treasure. Prepare spell, this wild idea where we can actually have a tutor for an instant and sorcery. So this one is just super efficient. It is a good wall. It will help us on getting to the late game, and it will give us a best way of ramping. I would not exclude the Sky Whale in this version as well. This one feels like it will be more available on getting a 3 counters on this one. So this one is just, like I said, generally good card that we will want to be playing in this version or in this color combination. Visionary's Dance, it feels like a Prismari 7 mana spell. This time it doesn't make 2 4/4s, it makes 2 elementals that do have flying, and it doesn't make a treasure when we do this card, comparing to the previous version of this one in Strixhaven. I still think this is gonna be good, because like if you can keep on chaining the spell and like making bodies with it, I think it is a really good card to try to ramp into and play it. Creatures in this version that I feel like are gonna be good is Campus Composer. It's a creature that does have wards, so it is a bit protecting itself, and it does attach itself with another body if we can cast it for 5 mana. I think I would be interested in trying it out in this version, because I think it's gonna be more likely that we will have like more usage of using this 5 mana spells. Hydro, same as in the other version. I think in this one works maybe a bit better because it's a blocker early on. It will help us in casting spells, and it is just, like I said, a generally good card that I think you would want to have when you're playing the Prismari. Landscape Painter feels like a good drop. It will block early on, can trade, and if you have an option, you can use it prepared. So I would be interested on playing this as a 2-drop in this shell. Muse Seeker is interesting in this one. It does give an option of drawing a card and then discarding it if it wasn't the 5 mana spell. I think it will just help us on going through the deck and finding the key pieces for us surviving, and then like making the worth of our spells. And it is a card that I think the opponent has to deal with, because if we can keep on chaining 5 mana cost spells, this one will just like outvalue the opponent. So the Tide Choreographer, I think this one will just generally be good. We have a lot of creatures that do have a lot of high toughness. Most likely we will be able on casting it for 2, so this one will be great to run. I think anything that does have increment will play great. Our idea is that we want to survive as long as we can. So these creatures that do have high toughness but not the big power are gonna be amazing because it feels like it will be easy on growing them. And I can easily see this becoming like a 4/7 or like even a 5/8 in this shell. So I think this 3-drop is one of the better ones we can play. It does give us the surveil, so it will help us on like making sure we find the cards. Tester of the Tangential. This one I'm not quite sure. It is another increment card, and I think the increment card just in limited are gonna be super strong. So I don't think the card will be bad, but it isn't really the greatest blocker, or by the moment you deploy it, it is just a 1/1. So it is a bit tricky to see this one. I think it will be great because like I see it still easily becoming like a 3/3, 4/4 fast enough. And then like if there is a usage of an ability, you can use it. But I don't want to like say with guarantee that this is gonna be great in Prismari. Maybe it's gonna be better in the other versions, or maybe this one goes better in the aggressive deck, but currently don't see it, and I cannot understand it, so I'm like super interested on seeing how like this one will perform. Blazing Firesinger, I think it will be a good 3-drop for us. We want to be casting 5 mana spells, and this one does allow us, so this one feels like it will be a good card to run in this version of the deck. Goblin Glasswright, I think this one is just great. You want to have 2 drops, you want to be surviving, and we like the cards that can generate us more stuff. Plus we might be more interested on the treasures that we can get. Reason for why are we interested in generating the treasures: we have the golden card that can do that, and we have this 2-drop. I think this 4-drop is just amazing if you can have passive ways of having an artifact to sacrifice. So this one, it protects itself with a ward, pay life. It's not the biggest ward, like opponent can pay life, but of course like there are gonna be spots where opponent will not be able on doing so. And then if we ever get to copy instant on sorcery, that just feels like super amazing, like especially the bigger expensive ones. Pigment Wrangler, we like the form, we like the flyer, and we definitely like having a 1 mana of copying our expensive spells. So this one will be it will be amazing to try in this version. I think this 3-drop is interesting because it does feel like Awaken the Ages is more possible in Prismari shell. So a creature that can generate 2 additional creatures, I think that this one will feel like a good include in this version of the deck. And I think just generally like same as the other one, we just like creatures that have the prepare on it. It's like always more value, and we get more triggers on the opus, or just like more things that we can do with our mana. I think the mascot will just be good in this version as well. It does have that great body where it can block anything, and then this version I feel like will be more available in casting the 5 mana spells, so we can like get more cards to play with this one and just keep on going through the deck. Tablet of Discovery, I think this one is just great. We will want to have a way of ramping, and this one can give us the 2 mana for casting instant and sorceries. Page, which is a 2 mana creature that can generate us mana more. Like I said, we are interested in just ramping, and this one, even though it is legendary, does have that ability where it can actually help us on finding more instant and sorceries. So maybe getting more of this is actually not bad. This mana rock is pretty interesting because at the moment we don't need to use the mana, it can actually gain us 2 life. I think this color combination could struggle with the early in the game, like if the opponent is the aggressive one. So having a card that can like generate this passive life, will be interested on giving it a go. And the Diaries of the Dreams, I'm not sure which one we would like this one in. It does have that impression that it is better if you play it with like cheap spells, but yet again, like the expensive one will make sure that it does get to the late game. If you get like 2 or 3 counters on this, even paying 2 mana for a draw is not bad. So I would try to experiment with this one and like figure out, will it be better in the aggressive version, or the tempo more, or the one that leans more on casting the expensive spells. Other than the Visionary's Dance that we did mention as a card that we want to ramp to, here are some other cards that I feel like are pretty good to play when you get the mana to, and you can cast the expensive spells. I think the Stress Dreams is just like we said, a great removal, and like it will keep on going through the deck. So this is another card that we wanna try to cast as fast as we can with our cards. Rapturous Momentum, it does cost a lot, but we are gonna try to cast this as fast. And then like if you think about it, it's like 1 mana, since like it does generate you back the 5 mana. And drawing 3 and discarding 2 is just an amazing thing to have. Another card that I think can be the plan of our deck and how we can like approach this idea of the more value orientated and like casting expensive spells is this equation. It is an instant, which is super interesting. You don't need to cast it if the game is like that, but if we can get to cast this and we like try to cast it for like 7 mana, it does return 3 cards, and all the cards we keep on returning will most likely keep on generating us value. So I think this is the card I would be interested on trying in this Prismari deck, where we are gonna keep on casting expensive spells. And I think like if you can cast this, like I said, for 3 or 4, it just feels like most likely you have won the game, depending on like what cards you have written. Homesickness, on the first glance, it doesn't seem that anything special, but like I said, we are gonna be able on ramping. So this one will draw us cards, will tap creatures on opponent, and it will help us on survive. So I think this one would be interested on being played in this version. I think in this version, depending on how many of other cards we have that will draw us cards, Fractal Anomaly will be better, since there is a lot of expensive cards that do draw cards. So I think this one can easily be like a 1 mana 3/3, 1 mana 4/4, maybe even bigger depending on like how many draw you did draw. So I think this version would love to run the Fractal Anomaly. So we are mostly interested on the same removals as the other one. We want to be playing those efficient removals that we can get. But other cards we could maybe try is some counter spells. We have this Brush Off that does give an impression of a negate and a cancel. So if you can support it, I would not hate like trying this one out. It can deal with both creatures and other cards if we have the mana, and we are possibly gonna be good enough on getting the mana for instant sorceries. We have a need for another like way of dealing with creatures. I think the Essence Scatter will fit in that spot nicely. Now I would like to like talk about some rares that I feel like will possibly be a good build around or an idea. I think this Mathemagics for 2 blue and an XX, even though it does seem like a meme, if you can get like 12 mana, it just wins the game. Sometimes like even the power to 4 will be enough depending on how long the game goes. So I would not hate on trying this. I think like if we can like set up a lot of like cards that can generate us mana, it's not the craziest idea to play this. And yet again, like nobody's like asking you to play this for the maximum. You can always like play it for cheaper, like for example play it for like 1, draw 2 cards, even though that's not exciting, or like play it for power of 2, draw 4 cards, and since we do have a way of returning this spell, that actually gives us an option of like trying to play this later on for more, and then trying to mill out the opponent as having a way of victory. Wisdom of Mages, on first glance it just seems super expensive. It is a sorcery, so when you're casting this you don't have most likely any mana to use, but I think this is yet again a good win con card or a good build around. I think with this one we would just like to play like cards that are generating creatures, cards that are like efficient removal, and then this is a card, if we cast it and the opponent does not kill us, we'll be able on just winning us the game. And one more card that I did want to like check as a possible like build around, I think like the Tidecaller goes good in both versions of the deck, so I would definitely try to play this one and then try to have this guy as a win con. I think like it seems like it mills a small amount, but if you can, and I think you will be able, on triggering the Opus, this one can easily just end the game fast if it does get not removed. Of course there are other cards that are just like amazing rares. Yet again, I'm not gonna check every rare. I think like you can figure out which rares are amazing and like why are they amazing. So I did like check some rares that I felt like are a build around or can be maybe on some people would not seem like they can be a win con, but I think that they are good. So how are we gonna decide on which one we're gonna go for? Yet again, I think it is the combination of like which cards are wheeling, which cards are you getting that go more or better in a certain version of the deck. So for example, if you're getting Ancestral Zangars on wheel, I think you can go more on the tempo oriented version and like trying to keep on taking cards that would go good in both versions. Like I think that's generally a good idea. If a card goes good both in the tempo oriented version and it does go good in the more on the value oriented version, I think you are not ever gonna be wrong on taking it. But then like when you see the wheels and like for example nobody's taking a Rapturous Momentum or Visionary's Dance, and it feels like you have enough glue pieces that can actually help you on casting the cards, you can try to maybe make the other version work as well. So that's the way I see Prismari and the two ideas of this color combination. Let me know if you see it differently, if I missed any card and you would want me to like cover it. So I really appreciate you all watching and sticking to the end. Thanks for watching this one as well, and if you do like it, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. It would mean a lot to me, and leaving a comment and liking a video helps out a lot. Yet again, thanks for watching, and until next time, cheers.